How's it going, fam? Welcome back to Erica's EDC, and today we are talking about Survive knives, MAGNACUT, my thoughts. This is going to be a lengthy one, guys. Grab a drink, grab a snack. We're going to get right into it. I have my Lord's drink, these silly sodas that are apparently a little bit healthier than normal soda. So this is mine today. Cheers. Guys, the results have come in for Survive knives. We all know that they have been dealing with a pretty severe CPM and MAGNACUT issue. If you don't know what I'm talking about, definitely go watch all of their videos on it. I'm not going to get into the politics of that whole situation, but I am going to talk about MAGNACUT as a steel because I review knives. So that's what we're going to talk about. But I do want to bring in the findings of what Guy found, because I think it does apply to what I'm going to talk about. So basically, Guy has been having some pretty significant issues with MAGNACUT steel for, I think, 2 years now. I believe he said in 2022 these issues started up, and he's been finding voids and pockets in MAGNACUT, and it has been really difficult for him to work around that because, you know, a void in the material, sometimes you just can't really work around that. So he was having some pretty significant issues with it. The findings have now shown through lab reports that these voids have been created in what looks like the melting process of MAGNACUT as it's being created, right? So there are all these lab reports, there are pictures, we've got the photos, everything. Like I said, go check out Guy's channel for the in-depth details on that. But basically now, in the knife community, we have two sides, right? We have a lot of makers saying, okay, I didn't like working with MAGNACUT to begin with. It's difficult to grind. It's too time-consuming. I'm blowing through belts. Now I'm really not going to use it. But then we also have people saying that they've never had an issue, they've had fabulous results with it, and they're staying with it, because you will always get lemons in any field of work creating things. There will always be bumps in the road and issues and voids, and sometimes you just got to truck through it and, you know, make the best of it. So we've got two sides here, and I want to share my experience with MAGNACUT because I've had quite a lengthy one, and I think I'm in a different place now than I was. What is Nugget doing? I'm in a different place now than I was at the beginning. So at the very beginning, when MAGNACUT hit the market, I was one of the first people to receive it years ago. I have all these videos on my channel, and I hated it. Oh my gosh. I was literally one of the first people to have it, to test it, to review it in the entire US. And my first go with MAGNACUT was horrific. I don't have the knife anymore, I gifted it to someone, but I had a small knife that kind of looked like this called a mini javelin from BGM Knives. I think the heat treat on that was 60 to 61. I believe he was following Laren's protocol and heat treat for all around, you know, a good EDC knife. And you know, following the protocol for a good EDC knife, whatever that meant back then, okay? And I felt that the steel did not hold an edge well. It was gummy on the stones, no matter what type of stones I used. It was difficult to deburr, and it was not my forte at all. And like I said, all of this content is recorded and on my channel, everything, okay? So I was like, this blows. Like, this is supposed to be similar to 4V, and it's garbage. I didn't like it, okay? I tried everything with that knife. It didn't work for me. So John made me a new one, and he bumped up the heat treat on these. I believe his range was 62 to 63, and this one came in at 62.5. I had issues with this one too right out of the box. It just wouldn't hold an edge. And again, all of this is filmed. It's on my playlist of testing. I could not get this thing to hold an edge. Later on, I found out that the edge being convexed from John was problematic for me in my use. feel like Zadie is looking for a turd to eat, and that's why she's being weird out there. If you don't know, Nugget's name is Nugget because she eats nuggets. It's gross. She's always done it. Zadie. Mrs. Zadie. Don't do it, okay? Gross. I gotta keep an eye on this one. Anyway, talking about poop, talk about MAGNACUT. So I get this one in, try testing it. It's not really working for me. It's working better than the other one, but not how it was marketed, I guess. And I found out that the edges that John put on were convexed, okay? Because of the whatever machinery he was using to put the edge bevel on made the edge convex, you know, just like a Chris Reeve. And I guess for me, it didn't really work. So what I ended up doing was, once I found that out, hit this on the diamond stones, you know, took that convexity out of the edge, put a nice flat bevel on it, and ever since then, you know, I went through like 5 sharpenings, whatever. Ever since then, this knife has been one of my best performing knives out of anything I've ever used. I really had to get rid of that convex edge, had to go through some sharpening and stuff like that, use diamond stones, and this knife has treated me extremely well ever since. I've batoned with it on camera, beat the living crap out of it, smashed it into nails. Basically nothing happens to it. It's so thin. I think it's like 12 thou BTE, very thin, full flat ground blade. And this one has done incredibly well ever since I, you know, put my own edges on it and stuff. And this is my recent freehand edge on there, which I don't know if it's going to pick up, but I figured out how to work with it. Here we are. I love it. It's a very, very good knife, okay? But, you know, part of that was bumping up that heat treat, right? It just, in my opinion, MAGNACUT does not do well under 62 HRC. It just doesn't. And you're not compromising any toughness, really, bumping that heat treat up, but you are gaining edge retention. Look at the charts. It's just how it is. There is basically such a minuscule amount of loss of toughness that it doesn't matter, and you should not be putting MAGNACUT under 62 HRC, end of story, okay? So we're moving forward. We're testing MAGNACUT from Chris Reeve. It's doing incredibly well. What is that? 63 to 64 HRC? Beautifully done. Love it. Fully tested it. Fully reviewed it on the channel. Chris Reeve did an awesome job. Then we get the Steadfast EDC in from Steve Kalari at Kalari Custom Knives. MAGNACUT 63.5. Beautiful knife. Full flat ground. This one is 18 BTE. We're like the old days here. The barking, the poop eating. Hey, enough. We're like the old days here right now. Beautiful knife. Tested and reviewed this. Passed with flying colors. I will say, I did not have to mess around with the edge on this like I did with the BGM knives. Steve does his edges freehand. And I'm not talking like on a system. I'm talking like stones, freehand. He actually puts the edge on, okay? Came disturbingly sharp. I did sharpen this. I've sharpened it multiple times. Deburring literally is the easiest thing I've ever done with this knife. Like 2 swipes on a ceramic rod, deburred. Comes up so stupid sharp, it's actually scary. I batoned with this on film. Nothing happened to it, like unscathed. It just so easy to sharpen, and I'm trying to pick up that bevel. Come on. It's not gonna do it. Anyway, extremely easy to sharpen, just a pleasure to use, very quick to work with. I mean, it feels so good on the stones, it's so responsive, and you can get a gnarly freaking edge on these Kalari custom knives in MAGNACUT, okay? Beautifully done. So, you know, we're on a better roll here with MAGNACUT, in my opinion. And I was like, you know what? We're going to bring a couple other samples in here for this fixed blade testing, because I really want to figure out where I stand now, knowing all of this stuff about MAGNACUT. Like, do I still recommend it? Because for at least a year now, I've been saying it's one of my favorite steels, and I recommend it to everyone, and now people are crapping their pants because Survive did prove that the voids were there, right? And they were voids other people was finding too, but Guy's the one that spoke up about it. So then we bring in the Montana Knife Company, what is this, Blackfoot 2.0 MAGNACUT. We don't really know what the hardness is on this. Couldn't really find it. There was talk of it being 60 to 61 from some info on their website, but a little bit unknown there. Either way, this comes in. We're going to test it. It's a production knife, done in a production setting, so that's why I wanted to bring this in, because production knives are very different than custom, right? There are so many things that could go wrong. Hopefully they don't, but there are things that could. So we've got production MAGNACUT. Then we also brought in the Bark River Knives Taupe Water Moccasin MAGNACUT 62 HRC done at Peters, okay? I put a bevel on this on my own because it came convexed, as all Bark River knives do, but I really wanted to see how this did putting an edge on it, because without getting myself in trouble here, I've heard a lot of interesting things about the MAGNACUT from this company. So because this came with an edge that like didn't work for me, I just figured, you know what, I'm gonna do something crazy and put a bevel on it and make it not a convex zero grind, and really get down to more of the true steel, if that makes any sense, okay? Because removing material can kind of help you get to the realism of a steel. So I went balls to the wall on that, put an actual bevel on it. We're gonna see how it does. And then finally, you know, I'm talking with Guy from Survive Knives on Instagram. He caught some of my videos about MAGNACUT and reached out being like, that's what I've been experiencing, and I'm actually running a whole ordeal on it. And he sent me this. I did not pay for this. Guy sent it to me. It's an EDC 2.7 in MAGNACUT, 62 HRC from Peters Heat Treat, and this was just a spare knife he had laying around. Hey, I'm trying to talk. Spare knife he had laying around. I don't think they make the 2.7 anymore. They're onto the EDC like 3. So this was just like an old model that he had 2 left of, just laying around in boxes, and he was like, you know what, I'm not going to do anything with it. It's old, so I'll just send it to you. So he sent this along, right? And it's a gorgeous knife, beautifully done. Fit and finish is just top notch. And this is an interesting piece because in my opinion, it's a little bit of a hybrid, right? So we've got Peters that did the heat treat. Everything else is done in-house. And the attention to detail, in my opinion, on the Survive knives is custom quality. It's in a production setting with a small group of people, but you're getting, like I said, attention to detail that you would find in a custom knife. So it's a little bit of a hybrid, in my opinion, right? So I really wanted to test it because it's MAGNACUT, the steel that he's having issues with, and it's a knife from him. So I was like, who wouldn't take that opportunity? So now we've got all these knives, right? I've thoroughly tested and reviewed and used 2 of them. The rest we still have to do that with, but where do I stand on an opinion of MAGNACUT right now before we get into the rest of the knives? Well, what happened was really unfortunate. I'm not pleased with how anybody handled that situation. None of the, I'm not impressed with any of it. I think it turned into something that was really too bad for the community. In terms of the literal steel, as it performs, it's been really good to me. It just has. Other than the hiccups at the beginning, which we worked out, it's been a very good performing steel. I do think you have to do some sharpenings on it to get down to the true steel. I do think you really need to find it at like 62 HRC and up. I really genuinely think that. I do think that it seems like some of the stuff that gets heat treated at a specific place maybe gets a little wonky sometimes, okay? So maybe go the custom route, that way you know it was done correctly. But all in all, in terms of literal performance, MAGNACUT is one of the best steels I've ever used. And that is across the board with everything included. It's one of the easiest steels I've ever sharpened. It genuinely is. when I'm saying easy, what I mean is the amount of time you're spending sharpening the knife. There is no such thing as a steel being difficult to sharpen, in my opinion. It can be time, it can be a very extensive period of time. You know, if you're working with MAGNACUT, it can take a dang long time. Sometimes the burr can be interesting to work with. I wouldn't call it difficult. You just have to find different abrasives that remove your burr in the manner that you wish. But we can call it easy, we can call it less time consuming, we can call it easy on your budget, because you don't need crazy setups to work with MAGNACUT. You can get a 600 grit DMT stone, and that will literally sharpen your MAGNACUT, and you don't need anything else. Like, that's all you need is just one 600 grit DMT stone. Get a strop if you want, but encompassing the word easy, that's what MAGNACUT is. It's easy to sharpen, it's cheap to sharpen, it's cheap to touch up, it doesn't take any time, it's very stainless, very easy to deburr, like no issues with that at all. Takes a screaming sharp edge with no time, keeps it for a very good period of time, very good toughness, and again, using toughness as an umbrella term, as we've talked about on the channel. Toughness if you're talking about batoning. Toughness if you're talking about, technically, edge stability. Toughness if you're talking about being able to kind of crank on this thing a little bit, whether it be side to side or up and down. In my opinion, and from my experience, shouldn't break and hasn't broken. Just great lateral strength. Toughness, in essence, with MAGNACUT for me has been really, really fantastic, even at that high hardness of 62.5 and up, okay? So all in all, with all the positives from MAGNACUT, it's treated me very, very well. I have nothing bad to say about it if you get it done right, okay? So, you know, this whole thing that happened with the voids is super unfortunate. However, let's just use logic here for a second. If we have results saying that it happened in the melting process, okay, where they make the steel, wouldn't that mean that CPM as a whole, like technically that unfortunate issue that occurred could happen to any of the steels from CPM, right? And it could happen to anyone in the world that's making steel, because it just freaking happens, right? Like, it just, you melt things down, it can create voids, it just happens with, I mean, I know that there's cold roll steels and stuff, like, we're not going to get super technical here. My point is, if you're making steel, sometimes things can happen, and I don't think it pertains directly and independently to MAGNACUT. I think it really could happen to any steel that follows the same procedure. Does that make any sense? It could just happen to anyone. So I don't want to bash MAGNACUT or say I'm never going to use it, because I actually really enjoy it. It works very well for me. It's unfortunate what happened. I'm sorry for all parties involved, but I'm not going to be bashing MAGNACUT and tossing it out the window now that we have the results that there were voids that happened in the melting process. So I'm going to keep using it. I'm going to keep using it, testing it. We'll see how it goes. Really excited to bring these into the test. I have no... Hey! I have nothing bad to say about it. Like I said, the whole situation was just unfortunate. So that's where I stand now. I don't take back recommending MAGNACUT. I like it. I hope things turn around for everybody. So that's kind of where I stand now. We're at 20 minutes. Holy smokes. Hopefully that clears things up, guys, okay? Feel wicked bad for everyone involved, but I just really like the steel. I think it's great. It's worked really, really well for me. And for people getting into sharpening, if you're like decently skilled at sharpening and you can handle not working on an Ozark trail knife from Walmart and you want to kind of step up to the next level, like MAGNACUT's really really fun to work with. It's really nice. It's very responsive. I feel like it's not a sneaky steel. It's not a steel where you're kind of trying to really fish around for the burr and fish around for the right DPS and when to switch over to your other side. Like, you're not like, you know, looking through the weeds for like the next step. MAGNACUT is very clear and apparent as to when it needs to be moved up to the next step. Like, the burr comes up very, very nicely. It's very prominent, but it doesn't break off. It cleanly removes. I wish the camera would focus. The bevel that you can get super easy on the right stone is just like, it's just very clean to work with. It's really nice. Like, this is a freehand edge, which it's just not. I'm trying to get it to focus. I hope you can see. That's a freehand edge on a 600 grit DMT stone. And it's just very clean, very elegant, didn't give me any trouble. It's just a super easy steel to work with. So I really hope that people continue to use it, especially if they're into sharpening, because it's such a pleasure to work with. I have nothing bad to say about it. So we'll see what happens with this. We'll see what happens with the other ones. Super excited about testing MAGNACUT all over again with the current events, bringing that up to the surface of the channel. I think that's all I have for you guys. I hope that you're having a great Friday. I'm gonna go swap this out for some beers in a couple hours. So I will see you guys on the next video. I hope you have an awesome Memorial Day weekend. Please take time out of your day to acknowledge that Memorial Day is not about sitting around at the bonfire or the barbecue and getting blasted. It's actually super important. So remember to give 5 minutes of your time, please, to that cause. With that being said, go use your shit. Learn how to sharpen your knives. I will see you guys on the next video. I love you so, so much, fam. Take care.